All right, welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're entirely burnt out on context switching between your gorgeous, perfectly tuned local IDE and some bare bones, laggy terminal window just to fix a single bug on a staging machine, well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're fundamentally upgrading your workflow using VS Code's remote SSH extension. We're actually going to pair up, connect to a local Ubuntu 22.04 VM acting as a remote staging server, and debug a misconfigured script. And the best part? We're going to do the whole shebang without ever leaving the comfort of the editor.
We've all been there with the old workflow, right? Wrestling with Vim over a high-latency connection, manually syncing files with endless commands, and just generally missing out on things like IntelliSense. It's painful. But Remote SSH completely flips the script. You get all your favorite local IDE features, direct file system editing, and integrated ports. Basically, you are interacting with that remote server as if it's literally sitting right there on your desk.
Our sources over at SSH really hit the nail on the head with this. They point out that this isn't just about convenience. It is a completely different operating model for developers. The whole point is to narrow the gap between where code is edited and where code actually runs. So you don't have to break your back trying to force your laptop to perfectly mirror production anymore. You just bring your editor directly to the runtime environment.
So here is our game plan for today. We'll start by looking beyond the raw terminal, then jump into Setup and SSH config, navigating the workspace, handling terminals and port forwarding, and finally, we'll run through a live debugging scenario together.
Okay, section 1. Let's look at what's actually happening beyond the raw terminal with the VS Code server architecture.
The secret sauce here is that your local machine is basically acting as a thin client, while the remote server takes on all the heavy lifting. When you connect, VS Code quietly drops a tiny backend component, the VS Code server, straight onto your remote Linux machine. That little server handles all the intense stuff: file operations, search indexing, and IntelliSense. Your local UI is just displaying the results, which means you get a lightning-fast, local-quality dev experience, no matter how massive that remote codebase actually is. Moving right along to Section 2, Setup and SSH configuration, where we get our tools installed. Getting this going is almost ridiculously easy. You just pop open your VS Code Extensions panel, search for Remote-SSH, and install the official one from Microsoft. You know, the one with tens of millions of downloads. As soon as you do that, you're going to see a handy little remote indicator pop up in the bottom left corner of your window.
Now, let's be real, nobody wants to be typing out connection strings and IP addresses every single time they want to look at a staging server. So we're going to act like pros and use an SSH config file. The extension seamlessly taps into your local SSH config, which basically acts like a speed dial directory for all your remote boxes.
Let's quickly break down the anatomy of this config file. We set a host alias, just an easy-to-remember nickname, then the actual host name and user. But the real magic is right here, to finding an identity file for completely password-free connections using your SSH keys. Oh, and here's a massive pro tip we pulled from OneUptime. Add server alive interval 60. That sends a keep alive packet every 60 seconds, which totally prevents your session from timing out when you inevitably wander off to grab a coffee. Absolute lifesaver.
All right, Section 3. Now that we're configured, let's navigate the remote workspace and actually connect the editor.
To jump in, just hit F1 to open your command palette, type remote SSH, connect to host, and pick that alias we just set up. VS Code is going to open a fresh window, spin up that remote server component we talked about earlier, and boom, you're in. Once you click Open Folder in the Explorer, you're looking at the remote Ubuntu file system exactly like it's on your local hard drive. Browsing, creating, editing, it's all instant.
Which brings us to Section 4, terminals and port forwarding, so we can access those internal remote services.
So what happens if your remote server is running an API or a web app that isn't publicly exposed to the internet? You still need to test it, right? Well, port forwarding is basically your secret, secure tunnel. It maps a restricted port on that remote machine, pipes it through your encrypted SSH connection, and drops it right onto your local machine.
And this is where it gets crazy good. VS Code literally handles this complex tunneling for you automatically. You don't even have to touch the command line. If you spin up a Node or Python server in the remote terminal, VS Code detects that listening port and just pops up a little notification asking if you want to open it in your local browser. It's kind of like magic.
Okay, Section 5. Time to put it all together with a live debugging scenario on our staging server.
We've got a real issue to tackle today. We have a Python log processor script that is just silently failing on our Ubuntu 22.04 staging VM. No loud crashes, just not working. We're going to use our new remote SSH split screen setup to figure out exactly why.
Picture this workflow. We've got a split screen going. Over on the left, we've got our Python file open. Because the Python extension is actually running on the remote server, we're getting full hover documentation and IntelliSense while we hunt for the bug in the rotation logic. Meanwhile, over on the right panel, we've got the integrated terminal running tail on the remote application logs. We literally watch the stack trace happen live. We spot the bug, tweak the code on the left, hit save, which instantly updates the server, and then restart the script on the right. Just like that, the logs show success. Bug squashed.
Seriously, let's just take a second to appreciate what just happened. We fixed a staging bug without ever leaving the dark-themed comfort of our IDE. Think about how much better this is than the old raw SSH way. Zero manual rsync commands to push the fix, full Python IntelliSense guiding us, a live remote terminal sitting literally inches away from our code, and instant saves with zero perceived network lag.
The big takeaway here, it's all about eliminating friction. By leaning into this workflow, the wall between your local tools and your remote environments completely disappears. Your environment lives right next to your runtime target, but you don't sacrifice an ounce of developer experience. It is totally seamless.
I really hope this explainer has you pumped to upgrade your own server workflow. You now have the absolute superpower to debug live, remote environments with the exact same ease as your local machine. So get in there, configure those SSH keys, fire up a connection, and tell me, what broken script are you going to fix first?